Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy New Year. This is Scott Fuchetti at Geopath. I'm here with Brian Shopper of Geopath, as always.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Just wanted to, first of all, just say thank you to everybody for joining the session today. I know we're a little bit off schedule. Usually we do them the last Thursday and Friday of every month, but as I said on the last set of sessions in November, just given the holiday, we decided to kind of push it to do it the first week of the new year. And again, with that, we want to thank you for all of those joining and all of those new people joining for the first time to these sessions, as well as those of you that have been joining right along. We do really appreciate everybody's attendance and the feedback that you give us as we do these sessions. So with that said, as always, if there are any questions, please, reach out to us and use the question widget in the GoToWebinar application to post any questions. We'll do our best to answer them, in real time and get your answers so it's relevant to the point in time in the session. Like I said, if you've been to one of these sessions before, some of these first few slides will probably be a bit of a review, but for those that are new, I want to give you an overview of today. So what we usually do in these sessions, we give an overview of the key features and updates, and there's a lot that's changed since the last sessions we did in November. You'll notice that the pace of change is going to start to quicken in terms of new features added, new audiences added to the Insight Suite, because a lot of the beginning part of last year from May and for those first couple months after it launched, there was a lot of us getting to a place where the foundations of the functionality was in place to allow us to build upon. And that was the whole point of and is the point of our agile release schedule that we have. So I don't know if any of you saw, we sent out a newsletter yesterday, and I think also got picked up in out of home today, but we had a year in review, and within that, we were looking at all of the kind of updates that we put out on the Insight Suite, and we did 20 over the course of last year since May, and that allows us to get feedback from everybody, improve the tool, and just continually iterate, and we hope that's working for everybody. That's what these sessions are for, to help hopefully give everybody a chance to see what's been changed and how to use those new changes. So again, I'm going to review what's changed, go into the tool, show you how to use them, and then just always show you how you can provide support and feedback to us. So if something isn't working properly, if you have a great idea for a new thing, just where you can let us know. Just talked about this already, but we do really take your feedback to heart, so to speak, and we do want you to continue to provide that. So, and I did talk about kind of our agile release schedule, but the one thing I always want to make sure I do mention on these webinars, for the time being, the data in the Insight Suite is for non-commercial use, and what that means is it's really not the impression data that comes out of that tool is not to be used to conduct business. Basically, you would still get the impression data, your ratings data, et cetera, from where you currently get it today. So the legacy tools, ADS, O-Plan, or whatever you're working with, if it's Telmar or something like that. So continue to do that. We do expect a lot of times on these sessions, I get the question, okay, well, when will it not be kind of for non-commercial use? We're expecting in May at our conference, at our next board meeting, that our board will approve the tool as the currency of the industry. And the tool itself will be fully capable before May. And we'll continue to do these sessions up through May, as well as into after it's fully launched, because again, there's always going to be the need for constant training. And so we just wanted to give you that heads up. So again, if this is your first time and you haven't quite logged into the tool yet, or you've logged in a long time ago, just a refresher. You'll see the tool is very visual, interactive tool. One of the things that's key to it, that's somewhat subtle, is there's a unified audited database that's powering the tool, and that creates a lot of efficiencies for us. And you ultimately start to see that when, as a media owner, especially entering new inventory into our system, it's going to cut that process down to be a lot quicker, so new inventory coming online will be in the tool much, much faster and quicker than ever before. It's very interactive maps, so you can zoom in to whatever level you need, to city, specific street level or intersection. You'll see, you'll probably see today that I zoom in too quickly a lot of times, and I'm in at an intersection level that I don't want to be at, but that's just me and getting too aggressive, I guess, with my mouse. Anyhow, the other thing that was key to us and what we heard loud and clear as we were developing the tool, the need for an audience focused. I talk about it here as audience first, but it's really just an audience focus. Like, you may want to focus on audience first, you may want to focus on location first or operator first. So the tool is flexible enough to do that, but just know that there are right now more than 1,000 different audiences you can target on, and more to come, with reaching about 6,000 plus audiences by the time the tool is launched, or fully capable, I'll put it that way. Other things are every location that we do have currently is mapped, and that is also being continually updated. Once the tool itself is plugged into that unified database, you will start to see more and more units being added to that as well. And then just the ability to sort and get other more detailed market information, filtering inventory based on impressions, composition, rate, reach, and frequency, et cetera, is all much, much, much easier in the tool than it is in any of our current legacy systems. So I want to talk about the new features that are since in this release, in the last 2 releases, basically, since November. We broke it down into a couple different categories. So audiences, there's a bunch of new audiences that have been added just recently, last week, I believe. A new audience category came out. Telecommunications is a broad label for it, but that includes there's 462 new audiences there, and it covers things like internet purchases, sites visited, items shopped for, social networking use, those kinds of things. So that's a really exciting category, I think. And one, when I do these sessions, if you joined before, I guess you probably would know this, but what I typically do is I try to set up a scenario and work through a scenario. So I do want to focus on one that I thought of for this today, and using some of these new audiences. Other new audiences that have been added are related to digital video displays. There's 43 new audiences there. So that talks about kind of the places, how many places where they've seen digital video displays and where, things like doctor's office, gas stations, health clubs, etc. And then on the right side here, 140 audiences related to radio behaviors, radio listening behaviors. So networks, time of day listen to, types of shows listen to, genres preferred, using the listening to radio. So here's just a snapshot of all the different audiences and categories we have here. You can see with our consumer behaviors, more and more of those are being added all the time. So right now we have kind of 6 broad categories, going from automotive, restaurants, voting, which were in the tool for a couple months now, and now being new media-related audience categories. And then audience metrics, so that's, again, is an area that we're constantly adding more capabilities to. So previously, if you joined November, you would have noticed that we had, just at a broad level, the ability to track TRPs and composition index. But when you were looking at a national level, those numbers weren't showing up. Right, and so now when you look at a national level, you can see nationwide levels for an audience across, multiple markets. So again, as you're looking, when we go into the tool, you'll see that those numbers are filled in, and then as I narrow into a market or an audience, you'll start to see how those numbers change as well. And then similarly in the workspace area, you'll be able to use the United States as a kind of market area to see kind of national measures for a scenario that you're looking at. So again, just a note on the left side there, if no market is selected, that the calculations default to the United States. And then the other thing is that when you're also in workspace, instead of the system just kind of calculating every time you select or unselect a unit, you can more customize the set of inventory that you want and just click a button to calculate and have it kind of calculate your reach, in the moment after you've kind of got it to a place where you want to see it versus having to calculate and recalculate on the fly. It just creates an efficiency in terms of kind of allowing not you having to wait every time you click a unit on or off to have it recalculate. And then there were a host of different user interface and functionality that have been added. So one of the things in the filter inventory tab, you'll notice that you have now the ability, if you just want to only look at digital units or non-digital units, you can do that with just one click. And by clicking the digital only, you'll see here on the left how all the digital categories have been clicked on. Or you can also do this if you want to mix. Again, you don't click either of those two buttons, or you can customize. Like if you want to see just bulletins, but you want to see digital posters and posters, you can also go into each category and do it yourself. So another thing is getting much more granular in specifying things like orientation. So if you just want to look at all south-facing units, as it's here, you can do that. Also, if illumination is key, you can look at those. So if you just want to look at units that are, 24-hour, or here that have at least 18 hours, you can do that. As well as width, panel size. So again, sometimes it may be important, the specific unit size may be something you want to sort and filter, or only look at units that have a certain kind of, again, width and height. So all of that is now available and for you as you're kind of filtering and searching for inventory as well. The other thing, this is a feature that we've and a good example of something that we put out and then we iterate on. So coming out of one of the releases in November, we had the ability to map the zip codes that a unit is drawing audience for. And one of the requests was, I think, from me and a lot of other people was, hey, I want to know where that unit is in the map. So now that's there, and that we're also continuing to iterate on this feature as well, but that is one of the new improvements that came out. And here in the layers and display options, this was a new tab that came into the functionality of probably around November, and now more and more functionality is being added to that. So the idea of this is like, as you're creating something that you may want to export and put into a deck or share with a client or an advertiser, you have the ability now to layer in on your map different inventory sets and color code them right here. So that set has been changed from purple to blue, so they stand out differently, and you can have multiple inventory sets. And then also add in multiple layers of points of interest. So this one's showing we have our, our recommended 50 units for this Taco Bell, I think, example, and you can mapping out the Taco Bells in San Antonio as well as the Taco Cabanas and showing them as different colors so you can see where they are. And then now you can also have the ability, so all this is working towards the ability to customize the map and export that as needed. So you can add a logo, so obviously ultimately the client is Chipotle, and you have the ability to add the logo and also some text explaining the map that they're looking at. And then to print that. You could print it to a hard copy, but also export it to a PDF and then import that into a PowerPoint deck or whatever functionality you're working in or whatever program you're working in there. So just want to pause. I know we'll go in and jump in and take a look at some of this stuff, but Brian, any questions?
No, nothing yet, but again, if anybody does have any, we're keeping an eye on this, so feel free to reach out.
Cool. All right, awesome. So I'm going to jump into the tool. And, you know, in a lot of the older sessions, I've walked through in pretty detail everything. So I'm not going to do that as much. If you know, if there is something you do have a question on that I may kind of only briefly mention, feel free to reach out to us through the questions like Brian just said. You can also always reach out to us after the webinar on geekout@geopath.org, or go to one of the older webinars as well. But just that said, I do want to give everybody a quick overview, just in case, again, this is your first time. There's 4 key modules to the tool here. There's the workspace, and ultimately what that is, so I click the home button rather, that's it, and this brings you to this overview page. So this workspace is where ultimately, if you're using the tool frequently, where you would set up projects, clients, et cetera, different campaigns / scenarios. The scenarios is the terminology we use in the tool, that you can use that for your planning or kind of identifying inventory that you'd like to recommend to an agency, et cetera, depending on which side you're working on. The Explore module is where you probably will spend most of your time. That's where you're starting to pick your audience, filtering your tools, creating your maps, et cetera. And the Places module is kind of a work area where you would identify points of interest, map those out, create them as a group, and then import them and go back to import them into your Explore area and start working with them. And the Reports area is under construction still, but that's going to be where you can create a dashboard and know how your campaigns are kind of moving along, share that with the client, share that with an agency, et cetera. So just a quick overview. And so I'm going to jump to the Explore module and talk a little bit about that, and we'll work through a scenario that I came up with. Hopefully it's one that's relevant for everybody as well. So here we are kind of logging into the tool, and so this is where you land in the map of the U.S., and what you're seeing here is all the audited inventory we have across the U.S. That's what all the blue dots represent. So 29 billion impressions, 29 billion target impressions, because we haven't picked a target yet, right? Our base target is person 0+. That's what we use as the base audience for all of our calculations. So everything that's generating, you know, 8.8 thousand TRPs, which is huge, and then the composition index is 100, because the composition index tells us about how much our audience, the audience you're targeting, is represented in it, and obviously we haven't picked one yet, so it's fully represented. So here, define target is where you would start to kind of narrow down. So audience selections here, I have some saved audiences here, which you can easily do once you pick them. But there's 3 broad categories: the population, which is broken down into behaviors, so things like commuting, employment, et cetera. One subtle change that's happened here is that when you open up one of these nested areas, everything shows up, so you don't have to scroll down, like what are the different attributes in commute. So it makes it a little bit nicer of a user experience. And I encourage you to look through some of these, but the broad categories, so demographics, a lot of the things you would expect: age, ethnicity, gender, race, etc. But then in the household profiles, there's a lot of categories here. So presence of children in the home, do you own a home, what's the value? Again, so you can see, I remember previously I'd always have to scroll through these, but now they're a little easier to work with as well. So I encourage you there. Prism Premier, just a quick overview. Claritas is our partner for the demographics. Prism is a segmentation product that they kind of market, but because they're a partner, we're able to pull that into our tool. So a lot of times agencies or clients are working with that, so they're available here, and there's a lot more information on, you know, what upper crust means, et cetera, in the tool, in the help and support area right there if you hit the question mark. But the consumer profiles, again, I'm often very excited about these and wanting to show these and use these in my demonstrations a lot, because this is really unique and new for us as an industry to have some of these behavioral types of categories. So auto, which is a category that I focused on in one of our more recent webinars, and then restaurants, which I know I often focus on a lot if you join these. So we have lots of different brands and usage. And then, like I said, some of the new categories here. I do want to focus on telecommunications today, because I thought it was a really interesting category. And I was thinking about, like, a lot of times when I'm on the road traveling and, you know, talking to members and reps, they hear this idea of, like, well, you know, often, you know, my client is telling me, well, they do digital advertising. Why do I need out of home? Or I'm reaching everybody. Well, I think this is the way, I just was thinking here, there's a way to help show, like, well, sure, but you know what, there's a group that you may be missing, and here's how out-of-home can help supplement, you know, supplement what you're currently doing. So I was thinking about that, and there's a category here, internet use, in the quintiles, right? So here's showing, and I know these are out of order. That was some feedback I just gave to our developers, that why are these out of order? But that'll be fixed. But you can see here the quintile heaviest to all the way through 5 quintiles the lightest. So I was thinking, well, let's find that inventory. I'll pick a market and find that inventory that that is more likely to reach those people that say they are the lightest in use of the internet, because those may be people that a brand may be missing. And I was trying to think of, like, who do I get a lot of emails from, right? Who do I see a lot of advertising for to go buy stuff online? And I was thinking, well, you know, it just so happened, like, I got an email, I think, from the Gap or Banana Republic or something like that. And so I was like, okay, well, let's say they have the scenario being that the Gap, you know, they have their digital campaign, but, you know, they also do a lot of out-of-home advertising. I know they've done some iconic stuff in San Francisco where they've had shirts, you know, actual shirts on the billboards, et cetera. So I was going to use that as our scenario for today. So I'm going to pick that audience, and I applied it. So if you look, right, so 21% across the nation, say, of impressions across the nation are among those that say that they are on the lighter side of the internet use. So it's a fair, significant amount. And I was thinking, okay, well, you know, what's an area that does have a lot of, that's known for tech, where you might have a lot of people that are kind of tech, you know, heavy internet users. So figured, you know, the Bay Area, San Francisco, let's go there. And then also it dovetails with the idea that the Gap is headquartered there as well. So anyhow, so this is what we got. So you can see, well, yeah, that makes sense, right? A little bit lower on those that say that there is lower internet use, which makes sense, again, but those may be important people for us to try to reach, because they're maybe a little harder to find in San Francisco. So how do we reach them? Okay, so we got our scenario set up, and I just want to show you here some of those categories. So media types, as we said, you know, you can pick all digital only or non-digital. And as always, everything's nested under there, so you can start to pick and choose specifically if you want. Here's all those specific media attributes, like we said, so orientation, illumination, and panel size. So again, it's just clicking and adding to those. And then, again, if you do want to specify a specific operator, you can always do that, and you can see kind of where they have inventory across the U.S. You know, maybe I'll take, just as a quick example, I'll pick Upfront today, and just so you can see their map of inventory across. Well, you know what? Apologies, I already picked San Francisco. Let me clear that. So it's only showing their stuff in San Francisco. As it's thinking right now, just double checking. Any questions?
No, nothing yet.
Okay. Okay, I received my request. Great. Let's see, I'm back to the national view, and let's see. Okay, let me just pick Adams for now, just to show you kind of what that looks like as the reason why it reorders as you pick a market to show you just the inventory and operators in that market that have inventory. So it's another way to explore locally, who has inventory in a market. If it's a new market that you've been in, or you want to see as a media company who else has inventory in the same market as you and where it's located. And then here's quickly just a map of Adam's inventory across the U.S. So anyhow, I always like that view, and I know I tend to do this one of every session, but I do like that view. So I'm going to go back to our scenario, picking San Francisco again. So it's the DMA. So you do have to set the DMA. Ultimately, you do that because you want to start to filter out the inventory around the rest of the country, so you can start to focus in on a market area. That said, we're going to get more specific in a second and show you. So I clicked on the bubble here, and it's going to zoom in and start to show the inventory in the area will come into focus. And you can start to use these buttons or your mouse to zoom in a little closer. And so what we're seeing is all the inventory we audit in San Francisco. And if you're new and don't know this, each color represents a different type of inventory. So bulletins are orange, posters yellow, street furniture turquoise, etc. Walls and murals in purple. So there's a lot of inventory here. So again, let's start to do a couple things. Let's say we want to look at location. So there's a lot of ways to create a custom shape. So you can create a radius if there's a certain area. So like there's a certain point on the map, or if you map a point of interest and you want to just see all the units within a certain radius, you can do it here. There's a couple different ways to do that. You can draw a custom polygon around a section. So if you want to highlight a roadway or a segment like that, you can start to do that. You can also import a set of points of interest, so all the gaps, all the banana republics, and map those here and create a radius of whatever you want around each. So 2 or 3 or 4 miles. You can do that here. Again, I've talked about this on some of the other webinars we've done, so I'm not going to necessarily focus on that. I just want to let you know that that is a feature. And for today, let's say we don't want the whole DMA. Let's say we just want San Francisco proper. So you can, started to type in San Francisco, so county, CDSA, DMA start to show up, which makes sense. But also now new is the city, so that's relatively new. So you can just focus on that area, and it'll map out. When I click this, it'll map that out, and just you'll just be looking at inventory within the San Francisco city limits, or even neighborhoods. So one example I like to use, in New York City, we have a lot of neighborhoods with nicknames. So I'm typing in Hell's Kitchen, New York, so I can click that, and it would just focus on that area. But I'm going to go back to our San Francisco example. I'm going to pick, like I said, I want to just look at the San Francisco city. Apply. So you can see here on the right, it's in the background now, but you can see as it's thinking, it's just started to outline the San Francisco city limits, and it is going to just show me inventory in the San Francisco city limits, and then we can start filtering and doing stuff in there. As it's doing that, there's obviously other things. You can load in specific units by Geopath ID or Plan ID. You can create different scenarios. Again, that's in the workspace, which can show you how to do that, and load in other inventory sets. So these are ways as you're starting to group and create your own groupings of inventory. You save them and can create little packages here and start to load those in, which I'll do a little bit later. But let's see here. I'm just giving it some time to think here as well. So again, everything is grayed out at this point. Let me just click apply one more time. And you can see what's happening here, showing that there's 4,966 panels, and that's created 21 million impressions, 3 million target impressions with the TRP, et cetera. And that's starting to show here on the right side. I do want to make sure. Oh. I do one thing. Sometimes, again, if this is something I will talk with the developers about, but I'm not quite mapping where I wanted it to just right now. I'm just going to double check that I have everything clicked properly. So I'm just filtering for San Francisco City and all the operators, all the media types. What I do want to do here, and I don't want to get too far ahead of the tool, I just want to look at posters, and I'm going to look at, because I'm thinking of this San Francisco in this type of campaign, we may want to be reaching people on the ground. So I'm looking at transit shelters and some posters, and I'm going to apply that. So I want to filter for just those units as well. So you can see how that went down here, 224 units as well. Double checking, I got my San Francisco, I got my audience, and I have my post, I have my media types as well as my location types. Right? Let's just try clicking on San Francisco again. So let's zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to show you, you can also filter and change the order of the different pieces of inventory as you go along as well. So right now I've started to filter by target impressions right now. And let's say I want to just look at the top 50. There we go. So I'm looking at, apologies about that. So what I've done so far is, I've filtered here on the right side, and the target I'm looking at sorting by target impressions. I could have sorted by target composition or in market, target impressions, et cetera, and all these other things, reach frequency, et cetera. And I'm also looking at the top 50. Right? So I want to look at those 50 units that create the most target impressions among those that say they use the internet the least. So those might be good units for us to use as we target our, try to supplement the gaps online campaign as well. So I have that set up right now, and let's start to zoom in a little bit more. I want to look, as I've done that, you can notice that the iconography changed a little bit as well. Let me zoom in one more bit, and you can see here how some of the iconography starts to now show has these little chevrons, and what they identify are the number of facings and the directionality of those facings. So you can see this turquoise, this transit shelter right here has one facing, and it's pretty much an east face on it. So let me click on that and show you some more information that's there. Obviously, you can see we are starting to import here on the right side the images that we are getting from our members. When we don't have an image, it just says photo coming soon at this point. So as I clicked on that unit, I clicked for more information. You can see see here all of the basic information. So your inventory at a glance, size, orientation, etc. So I wasn't lying, it does have an east orientation. And here is where we see other opportunities, so other audiences that this over-indexes for. So some of these are some of the PRISM segments, but this is also indexing for those that say they've eaten at an Italian restaurant in the past 30 days. So if you're looking for a client, maybe an Italian restaurant, we can do. I'm just trying to look to see if that's in that section, the Italian section of San Francisco, but not sure. There's a bus to work, and there's heavy bus scene. A lot of people using mass transit in San Francisco as well. And then here, also very interesting, what are the top zip codes that that's drawing audience for? So almost 40% of its audience is coming from this zip code, and then 60% coming from other zip codes. So again, a significant part of the audience is most likely coming from these zip codes or zip codes that where the unit isn't even located. So again, it helps us talk about that movement story about how out of home reaches people who, it's not only where it's located, it's reaching people from other neighborhoods and areas. And then the top market areas is where it shows you DMAs that it's also drawing audience from, and then the weekly audience summary metrics. So again, total audience for us is 0+, and everything's calculated based on that. And here's the target. Again, our target is those that say they've used the internet the lightest, and so calculate TRP, reach frequency, etc., all for that unit for weekly measures. And if you ever have questions on what some of those metrics mean or are, you can click the I button and it flips over here. Okay. So anyhow, I want to show you that other feature so you can map it, like we said. So I want to show where what zip codes are, where audience is coming from across the U.S. You can see a little heat map of that, but then also zoom in to the area where audience, where it's actually located a little bit more. Doing that. Coming to more focus. And you can also see that it's actually mapped there. And as we're doing this, one of the things I think, that I've asked for, provided feedback to our developers on is I think it would be nice to be able to click on these zip codes and see the actual percent of audience coming from those zip codes. So that's one thing that I think is in the queue that, again, we're trying to continually improve on this feature and functionality. So I could do the same thing for the DMAs as well. You can also, if this is more of the map that you want to focus on, you can just pull this across and just start to take over the screen with that and use that as well. And eventually being able to, I think, export this into a map layer as well, I think is also key. So I want to close out of that. Let me close out of that as well. There's the X button and the X out. So again, back to our scenario, right? So we have the top 50 units that are getting the most impressions for our target. We can also look at it in a tabular view if you would rather look at it that way. Again, just wanting to let people know that that's there. So all you do is click that up button, and you could drag it and just start to see here and work with it that way and sort different categories as well. You can also customize your columns in here. So if you don't want to see the ones that we've preset, you can do that. And again, all this can be exported into a CSV file that you can work with as well and import that into Excel. I'm going to close that out though. Like I said, we have our 50 units that we're looking at here. And then I want to start to look at my place sets, right? Because I want to know where are these units in relation to the gaps or the Banana Republics or Old Navies in the San Francisco market. Oh, sorry, I zoomed in a little too fast there. So I'm going to zoom into San Francisco. And again, this is, for now, this is the best way to use the Places module, is to zoom into the area that you want to look at and then start mapping out what you want to look at. So I'm going to zoom into San Francisco area. And you can do by categories, right? You can look at broad categories, or you can be very specific. Like I want to look at the gaps. Oops, gaps. So here's, it calls up right now 10. I'm going to map those. Let's see, I don't think all of those are ones that I want because some of them, so Gap Corporate Headquarters, let's keep that. Gap Inc. Cafe, I don't really know what that is. I don't want that one. I'm going to click that one off. Gap Harrison, I don't think we want that one. It's another cafe. Gap Kids, we'll keep that one. So this is a set, and we could save that as a place set. We can add it to another place set if we want to, if we want to look at, some that are in Oakland as well. We could save this and then scroll over to the Oakland area and just do another search for Gap stores, and it would put up another set of 10, and we could create like the Bay Area gaps. Granted, I know I've gotten asked the question, when can we upload our own set of places? Not yet. We are working on that at this point, and that's part of that's a request. Also, let me clear this out. Because I've already done this and I saved a place set, so I want to show you how you can even call those up. Yeah, so I've actually done it 2 different times. Gap location, San Francisco. So I'll apply that one. And so there they are. There's a set of 9 because I think we got rid of 1. Let me get rid of, yeah, I think we got them all. That's the one I want. I'm going to keep that. Great. Cool. I've also done this for some other stores as well, which I can show you how you can map in multiple locations. So we have our set, and we want to go back into the Explore module and start to work there again. So ultimately, sometimes you may want to have this place set, and like I said earlier, you may want to import it and show a radius of, I just want to look at inventory that's a 5-mile radius around all of those Gap stores, which you can do. But for today, and again, we've done that in the last session. But for today, I want to focus on showing you how to use the layers and display options, because that's where a lot of the changes were for today. So I'm going to zoom back in there to our area. All right. So we have, it should show our 50. Let me just look at our list again. Oops. I think it's thinking. I'm trying to make sure we're looking at our top 50 again. So right here, right now, once it catches up to me, I think I was moving a little too fast. I have those. So as a best practice, a lot of times if you're going to start to go into the layers and display options, you want to probably pick, because of, well, let me do this. Sorry, I guess I didn't do that. So let me show you. This is a set of inventory we like. Let's save that as a set of inventory for our planning purposes. Save it in the inventory set. So this is our light internet users, top 50 units. Great. Save. Want to save that as a set. Okay, great. I have that. And I could always call that up, and I mentioned earlier, load save inventory sets or scenarios. So I have that here, and just show you San Francisco. So there it is, and I could just click it, and it would remap those units. But I want to show you how to use this layer and display options, as I said. So one of the good best practices is to select none in here now, and so everything's grayed out. So all of the units that we audit are there, they're just in gray, and so it just makes it a nicer experience. So I'm going to go to layers and display options. I'm going to hit inventory sets. So I want to call, I want to find that San Francisco. I guess I have quite a few here now at this point. So San Francisco light internet users. I have that there. Let me do this. Right. So I can apply that view and show you that they get mapped. They'll all be mapped in purple. And let's say, well, you know what? I don't like that. I want them all to be blue. Okay, apply that view. And now the show up as blue. Oh, okay. Close that. Great. So I have my inventory. Now I want to see where my stores are. Let me zoom in a little bit first. Let's see. My place sets. So let's look at those. So I have my San Francisco gaps. Another thing that I think ideally is coming here is the search function. San Francisco gap stores. You know what? Also, too, since they're all kind of together as one, maybe it's also helpful to know where the Old Navies are and maybe the Banana Republics. Banana Republic. There we go. Great. So I have those. And let's see, I'm going to apply the view. There, so there's all my stores. And there's my inventory, but geez, I don't know which store is which. So again, you can just click on the icon here and change the color. So Gap, I think of them, their color code, you know, they're kind of a deep navy blue. So I'm going to take that, close that out. Old Navy, they're kind of a blue as well, but a little bit lighter blue. And then Banana Republic, I know their branding, a lot of times it's more dark, it's black, I think. So I have them there, and I'm going to apply that view, and now you can see how the store icon, if you change it as well. But to go back to our scenario, what you'll see is you can see how there are some pockets of areas where they may not be reaching, you know, currently today may not be reaching there. Here we go. Their audience. So there's a lot of pockets where close to stores that may, especially this area over here, there's a heavy amount, or there's a number of units that are reaching those that say that they're, you know, not heavily in using the internet as well. And I also, for comparison, did, let me close that out, I did heavy internet users here. Let me do something. And I'll leave that as purple as well. But again, you can start to do it for comparison. And again, it's all about the storytelling. And so maybe this will be helpful in telling our story, maybe it won't. It depends on kind of what story and how we want to tell that story as well. So you can see that, you know, maybe seeing how, you know, there are areas that are good for reaching the heaviest users, but also, again, there may be areas where the lighter ones are not, you know, the lighter users are not being reached. So again, you can start to use that in telling our story, but maybe we don't want to include those for now. So good, we like our map. There's also other display options. So as we think about using this to share with the client, we can decide if we want the map legend in, which I think we would want. Maybe we don't want to show the zoom and other controls. These filter pills, which are probably something we do want to keep in because it helps them understand the map, so we know look, that's our audience, that's the market, those are the media types, that's the geography. So I think we'll keep those for now. Custom logo. So let's say we want to, this is for the Gap. So let's see Gap, or maybe I've actually downloaded a logo. Add that. And you can choose, depending on the type of logo that you import, if it's the vector logo or not, may have a background, may not. You can decide to add a white background to it. But then also you can add custom text to it. So, inventory, reaching, white, internet. So, and for these, you probably want to add a background, so white background to it, so it shows up. And then you can also choose different map. I tend to use the light one. We do have a satellite, and others will be coming soon as well. Apply this view. Close this. And then you can start to adjust. Everything's coming back into focus. So there's our inventory. Those are our shops. Cool. I'm going to move this over here so it's more. I'll move it down here. Oh, okay, great. We got our text and we got that. And what do we want? We want to maybe now save this. So I'm going to save my view. Save view. Gas, spring campaign. Yeah, great. Save the view. And you can also print this. So you just say print, and it'll call up the print aspect of your browser. And then you could choose to send it to a hard copy or a PDF, etc. And you'll see on the right side what the view is like. So there, so if I want to change it and save it as a PDF, so again, it'll save it as a soft copy. You can start to use this and, like I said, import it into whatever you need. So I'm just going to cancel that for now. But then also over time, as you want to retrieve other saved views, you have here, I'm going to show that. So here's some older ones that I've saved actually as well. And I can load these, etc. as well. So that's an overview of some of the key features and functionality since last month. We'll continue to have more and more changes coming and continue to do these sessions all throughout the new year. And again, typically, we'll run these as like we have been. Again, there's always the help button, but you can always go to support.geopath.io if you need help on the Insight Suite. You don't even have to be logged in to do that. All of our older out-of-home office hours are here, so if you need to catch up, I know I mentioned that certain things we've done in other webinar sessions. So you can go to, this is a screenshot of our website, so go to geopath.org, go to the Geek Out tab, and just scroll down to out-of-home office hours. You can also even see all of our older out-of-home office hours by clicking where it says click here, and that'll bring you to that list of historical ones we've done. Check in with Brian if there's any other questions.
Yeah, there was one that I think you addressed, so I didn't even bother bringing it up, but it was about sort of the custom views or custom map elements, and it was, can you save custom colors? And so I think when you're going through, I believe it saves when you save your view.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think, but also too, I wonder if it's also about like, I have a specific set of colors that I always want to use and be able to easily call up that color. Sure. Yeah, too. So I think that's a really good question, and I think something we can add as a feedback. Right here, let me close it up. But that is a good question. I think at this point, what I would, I guess, recommend is, let me get into the layers. I think it is really about knowing what that icon color is and setting it. So you can type in a custom color by E2, and you can do that. So if you know the custom exact kind of colors that you do want, you can type it in there and always use that. So it's more about doing that, I guess. And then as you save that set of inventory, it will have that color, I guess, with that ultimately. So that's one way to do it as a workaround as well. But that's a good question. Okay, cool. Just before we do sign off, sorry, I want to make sure everybody's aware of our upcoming webinar. So we'll pick back up with our regular cadence at the end of this month. So last Thursday and Friday of every month, doing kind of an updates on what's changed in the Insight Suite. But also, more and more this year, we want to do other webinars as well. So we have a CEO discussion with Andrew Feigenson. He's the CEO of Simmons Research. So he'll be talking about respondent level data and the importance of that, so essentially survey data. And Dylan Mabin will be with him as well, chatting about kind of what that means for the Insight Suite and how we're using that type of data as well. And then we'll also do a demonstration of their tool, the Simmons Research tool. And I just want to get that on everybody's radar. It's February 12th from 2 to 3 Eastern Time. We'll be sending out kind of updates in our newsletter on all of these as well. So meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, geek out at geopath.org. Always happy to help out however we can. And any other questions? If not, we'll say thank you to everybody and hope everybody has a great day. Talk to you soon.